Maybe you're an orbiter, and you don't even know it. You know that female friend you talk to about personal stuff, who asks favors and also does favors for you? Sure, it can be a neutral, brother-sister kind of friendship. But in real life, a lot of the time it's not that neutral, and that's where the orbiter dynamic starts. Some men orbit without realizing it. Men and women are wired for attraction. Nature built the instinct of reproduction into us and didn't ask for permission. So when a male friend and a female friend start increasing intimacy, jokes, teasing, flirty wording, inside moments, that neutral friendship slowly gets contaminated by chemistry. You might say, I don't feel anything for her. Sometimes that's true, but in many cases what's true is this: you want to feel nothing. And desire, instinct, and hormonal reactions don't always obey conscious will, yours or hers. Here's the uncomfortable part. Women tend to be more selective, and often more sensitive to emotional context. That doesn't mean women are helpless or out of control. It means people fluctuate, and one day you may get a different smile, a different look, a double-meaning phrase, a slightly more intimate tone. Small things, but for a lot of men, it's enough. If you already had a pre-existing interest, even if you've been repressing it, those signals act like gasoline. Your optimism rises, your expectations rise, your emotional investment rises, and so do your odds of getting hurt. That smile could be real and consistent interest, but it could also be a moment, a spike of loneliness, a need for an ego boost, a need to feel desirable. And sometimes people do this without planning it, without plotting. They test the emotional environment. They throw a small bait, watch the reaction, and only after that decide what it means. And let's be honest, assuming she has minimally satisfactory beauty, chances are she can get the validation she's looking for pretty easily. The problem is, once she gets that boost, her interest may return to normal, but your internal system doesn't get that notification instantly. You stay emotionally ahead, while she's already back to neutral. Look up validation addiction. It happens in both genders, but it shows up differently. For many women, it's common to want confirmation of their attraction power, even when there's no real interest in you. If there's real interest, great, that's honest flirting. The problem is when there isn't real interest, and still she wants to know, if I wanted him, would he want me? Rationally, it sounds weird. But humans aren't purely rational. There's biology, history, and social learning. Women historically had higher costs and risks in partner choice, and men often have faster interest triggers. That's why a subtle sign of receptivity can create faster neurochemical effects in men than the other way around. In the past, social dynamics were different. There wasn't daily mixed gender closeness like today, there weren't social networks, and this kind of long, intimate friendship wasn't so constant. Today it is. Flirty signals got blended into everyday interactions, mixed with friendliness, politeness, and loneliness. So the practical problem becomes this: a man can't be sure whether she's just being friendly or whether she has real romantic interest. Sometimes even she doesn't know clearly. She signals, watches your reaction, and only then interprets her own interest, best case scenario. The logic flips. She attracts first, then evaluates. But when she evaluates, you've already been pulled in. Your triggers have already fired. Hope has already been fed. And if she decides you're not who she wants for the slot for a partner, the relationship rarely ends. Because you're coworkers, friends, neighbors, same circle. The relationship continues, but with a scar. The pure neutral friendship stops being pure and neutral. It becomes a silent truth. Nobody talks about it, everyone pretends nothing happened. Often, she can sense the man's interest. This is human, and pretends not to know, so the relationship stays functional, while she tries to build something with a more qualified male in her eyes. And the man, to protect his dignity, pretends it's just friendship. That lie becomes an anesthetic for frustration. Over time, the full biological combo, instinct, dopamine, expectation, intermittent reinforcement, becomes an invisible chain. The man gets stuck in the role of sweet friend, almost a brother, surviving on crumbs. And yes, that's humiliating, because you invest like a near partner and get treated like a background character. Even if you have a girlfriend, a wife, or relationship history, this dynamic can still affect you. It may reduce your vulnerability, but it rarely makes you immune to the psychological cost of orbiting someone. And it's not just about you. Orbiting can also damage her relationships. If she has a partner, there's a high chance he won't complain to avoid looking insecure, but internally he's affected by the orbiting. And on your side, you damage your own future too. You can contaminate a current relationship or block a future one, even with someone you haven't even met yet, because you stay emotionally occupied without admitting it. To be fair, friendship between men and women is possible, but it only works with very clear boundaries. A simple exercise. Make a mental list of things people typically do when they're flirting, and avoid those behaviors with your female friend. For example, prolonged eye contact with intention, repeated, loaded smiles, frequent subtle touching, long hugs, double-meaning jokes and suggestive wording. And if there isn't even a solid friendship yet, she's just a student, a teacher, a coworker, a neighbor, be even more careful. Social contact is healthy, but if you want the relationship to form in a genuinely brother-sister line, you need the right distance, not so far that friendship can't exist, and not so close that it creates doubt. And here's what most people refuse to accept. Once the relationship gets contaminated by erotic signaling, it's very hard to fully reverse. The behaviors can stop, the friendship can continue, but how can you be sure what remained in the other person's conscious and unconscious mind, and in yours? If you want to leave this dynamic with dignity, the path is simple but requires courage. Reduce availability, cut intermittent reinforcement, and invest in relationships where reciprocity is clear. Because at the end of the day, an orbiter isn't a nice guy. He's the guy who, through hope, becomes a satellite around someone who never put his name in the slot for a partner.